Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Greer?
Present.
Johnson?
Present.
Vieira? Vice Chairman Christ?
Present.
Chairman Augusta?
Present.
Thank you.
We'll go to the consent calendar. CC1, approval of the minutes of the June 10th, 2009 meeting.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of June 10th.
Second.
And we get to take a vote.
We can do it by.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, would you please revote?
We do this with other commissions. It might be easier to just take a voice vote.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Let's go to new business item number 1, report on the Mongols motorcycle gang, and a call upon Captain Axel Anderson from Lancaster Station.
Yes. At this time, the Mongols have proved to kind of be a non-problem. What we found out about Wednesday of last week was that about 300 of them were going to show up at the Desert Inn. They had rented the entire motel, or virtually the entire motel. They also had exclusive rights to the bars and also the restaurant there. We learned through Major Crimes Bureau that it was their intention to come up here and have their yearly gala or whatever you want to call it, and also do a little recruiting out here. The city just did an outstanding job. Liz Brubaker found that the motel itself owed a huge amount of back taxes, and were also involved in numerous other violations, health and safety related. So what they did was they went to court, got an injunction, and shut the motel down based on that. We put together a huge operation we had in the area, both on Friday and Saturday, which is when they were supposed to be there at the motel, about 50 extra people out on the street. We had gang enforcement deputies. We had extra cops deputies. We had the Special Enforcement Bureau up here ready to go. And I think based on that, the Mongols decided that it probably wasn't a real good idea to come to the city of Lancaster for their big meeting. The last we knew, they spent the majority of their time down at a place in, I think, Montclair, and also another place over in Pomona, and decided not to come anywhere near Lancaster. It was a very, very successful effort in terms of public safety on both the part of the city and the Sheriff's Department. So we're real happy with the outcome.
Thank you, Captain. Any comments?
Jason, are you going to give a report for the city?
Marcus still anticipates coming. He may have got held up. What I'll do is if you can turn it over to Shelley, she'll talk about National Night Out. And or are you referring to the Mongols report? Or oh yeah, I'm sorry. The one report too is in addition is that the Desert Inn is still closed. They were closed, as Axel mentioned, as a result of some other violations that they have with the city. So those actions are still pending, regardless of the Mongols coming. So we will keep you posted, keep the community posted as it relates to the outcomes of those actions. But I too would commend the Sheriff's Department. If any of you went to the Celebrate Downtown Friday night, It was a fantastic event. I mean, I think generally everybody felt safe. It's probably the safest place on earth. There were more deputies than I'd seen in one place at one time. I even felt uncomfortable, and I was obeying the laws. But it was a great event, and they took a proactive role in identifying a problem that could have been a significant problem. We also want to report that there's been some minimization to a certain extent of the, volatility of this gang. Saying, oh, they're good people, they didn't break the law yet. I would venture to say the intelligence from the Sheriff's Department is much different than that. And as much as, we can present to the public, I'm sure the Sheriff's Department confirmed that these are not good people who were with anticipations of coming to the community with good intentions. So the proactive role was warranted, and as a result, the community event went off spectacularly, and it was one of the best events we've ever had. So I want to commend the Sheriff's Department for their actions.
Thank you, and I'll just add a little bit to what Jason has said about the Mongols. They probably are the most powerful and notorious outlaw motorcycle gang in Southern California right now at this time. As a matter of fact, they took territory away from the Hells Angels in order to become that. Recently, over the last couple years, many of their leaders have been successfully prosecuted both by federal law enforcement and local law enforcement for some just heinous crimes. Murder for hire, kidnapping, robbery, various forgery type violations, and they're also known for racially motivated crimes, particularly against African Americans. They're a very, very dangerous group, and it was happily on our part a very successful operation keeping them out of our city.
I want to thank you and the city for taking such a proactive role in keeping this motorcycle gang out of our community. And I think sometimes it's always hard to appreciate crimes that don't happen, right? I mean, it's just something that nothing happened because they weren't here. And so, and certainly in hindsight, if you hadn't taken that stance and something had happened, you would have people asking you, why didn't you do more to keep them out of our community? So thank you for doing that. I certainly appreciate your work from the city and from the Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, I'd like to comment too, Axel. I think that's, in addition to taking some swift and definite action, kudos to you for having the intelligence network that provided you the information even though they were coming here. It would have been real easy for that event to have taken place and not really be advised or on board with that and have sufficient time to take action. So, excellent job. All right, this time we're going to move, with no further comment, we're going to move to commission reports. And at this time, do you want to...
Jason, if I might, I need to, Jason's going to talk about where we're at on this, but I need to apologize a bit to the commission in that when we scheduled this, we knew that we had the whole 60th and L development stuff going on. We had last night, it's continuing to tonight. And based on a lot of what came up last night, our city attorney is feverishly working on some issues that need to be addressed by 6 o'clock tonight, as is Jim Cobalt. So Jason's going to give report number 1 to the extent that he was involved in the meetings, and I will go over report number 2 because both Jim and Dave McEwen are unavailable. My apologies.
Okay.
So we're going to take CR2 first.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Can we take CR2 before CR1?
Okay, I don't have any problem with that. We'll go to CR2. We'll take it out of order. CR2 is a crime statistics report. I guess we're going to call upon Shelley and Mark to have a discussion about that. Thank you. Okay.
Well, with Jim, you guys are used to high-tech presentations. With us, you get phone board. So, but the information is still the same. We had a spectacular second quarter. Crime was down 25.5% for the second quarter, Part 1 crimes. That's the third quarter in a row that crime is down 25%. What that means in real terms is there were almost 750 less crimes in 2009 first 6 months than 2008. Every crime category went down substantially. The only exception was homicide, which went from 2 to 6. We had a couple of events in February. And as you all know and you're well aware, homicide is not a crime you can really control other than working with gangs and such. And Axel will talk about some of our gang statistics, which are down too. I think there's just a couple of points that I want to make out. The property crimes, which are car theft, robbery, and then theft, larceny theft, are down substantially. Our property crime for the year is down almost 27%. Those are the crimes that affect people, their cars, their property, in their homes. So that's a really big deal. The burglary suppression team has made over 800 arrests since they've been in place. Axel will tell you about one of the latest arrests and the conviction that happened, which has to be one of the longest in the whole state sentences. The other two things that I want to the couple things I want to mention are our crime rate is down to, for the first half of the year, 157 per 10,000. It was over 200 at this time last year. So we are well on our way to meeting our goals. We cannot stop here. We've talked about that as management staff. We've talked about with the Sheriff's Department. We're continuing to, we have the resources we need now. We have a lot of the programs in place we need, so those are working, and then we're trying to add to those for specific either targeted operations or places that we can affect the crime rate more. We're looking at a couple specific locations in the city, which we will not divulge. We're also looking at one or two specific crimes that may have upticked a little. Before I turn over to Axel, one thing that never gets mentioned that's really important is traffic safety. Okay, people complain about getting citations. The cops that give out citations, the road crews that have to close the roads to restripe it, to do the signal timing and stuff, people don't like that. It saves lives. We issued more citations the first 6 months of this year than last year. We also made more DUI arrests. But what also happened is that our traffic collisions were down 12%, even with more cars on the road. Injury traffic collisions were down 19%. That's 77 less this year than last year. That's 3 a week. That means 3 less accidents on average this year than last year, which means 3 less families, 3 less sets of friends that have to deal with an injury collision. That's the direct work of having proactive enforcement and good traffic control, good traffic engineering, good signage, good all the things that you need. So that also keeps people safe. That's just as much a part of public safety as crime is. So with that, it's a time to celebrate but not rest on our laurels. I'll ask Axel to talk a bit.
Well, I think Mark stole all my thunder there. I don't know how much more I can tell you, other than how proud I am of all our deputies over there at Lancaster Station. Gang crime is down just by a huge percentage in all categories. The one I'm probably proudest of is gang-related shootings in the city of Lancaster are down over 60% this year. That's just plain downright hard work by all of our units, including our regularly assigned patrol guys. They've worked very, very hard. We've also worked very, very hard with our party cars, getting out and getting after these very large parties where these gangs get together and the trouble starts. The drugs are used, alcohol, and all these types of things contribute to the kinds of assaults that we see that are gang-related. So we're really, really proud of all of the police work that's done by all of our units. I'd like to have Dawn come up and talk to you a little bit about a recent really good burglary arrest that ended up with a great prosecution.
Morning.
Morning.
About 3 months ago, we had a residential burglary over on the west side of town, about H12 and 15th Street West. The citizens were involved. They called. They saw strange people in the area. Long story short, we get over there and we arrest 2 males and a female. They're all adults. We went to trial, and the trial just ended, and they were sentenced pretty severely. They got, one got 24 years, the other one got 23 years, and the other one got 14 years. They were all gang members, and so they got a gang enhancement, so they're going to do 85% of their time. So, that's just an example of what we're seeing with the success, of everybody at the station, the Berg teams, all the special teams, and the regular patrol deputies. And the courts are online with a lot of this stuff. I mean, they're standing tough with the Res Bergs, and we made an agreement with them, and they're holding to that agreement. So it's working.
Thanks, Don. One last comment I'd like to make. All the progress that we're making in terms of lowering crime rates in the city of Lancaster are due to a variety of things that are happening. Number one, we have a mayor and a city council that are absolutely unswerving in their support of public safety. And I believe the mayor has been nothing short of courageous in the way he has stood up and announced his intentions to make public safety the number one priority. Number two, our great deputies. I think that our deputies over there feel the support they're getting. They're very, very dedicated. Many of them live in the area. But they really are. I've worked a variety of sheriff stations, and I haven't seen this kind of dedication at every station I've worked. And just kudos to them. They're doing a wonderful job out there. And third, I think the community. Shelley's done a wonderful job organizing our neighborhood watches and business watches, and we just have a very, very supportive community here. They've stood up, and they have demanded that they have a city that's safe and that they have a city that has the type of quality of life that they deserve. And so we've all worked together, and that's why this is happening. That's why crime is going down. Can I answer any questions?
I have one. Can you, for the other commissioners that don't know, walk us through the community surveys that you do and how it's affected bringing the community involvement?
Sure. I wish I had one of those surveys with me, or one of the survey papers with me, but that's basically a COPS Bureau function and a high impact team function. And what they do is we plan at the station a target area where we know we have some problems, some specific problems. And the high impact team from COPS Bureau will go in there with questionnaires and ask all the residents how they feel about law enforcement, what their opinion is of, what the problems are that we need to work on, and just do a good survey asking them their opinions about what the Sheriff's Department can do for them. And so we go ahead and we launch the high impact team along with patrol units, work very, very hard with the community in that target area to solve problems and do the best they can to help the community feel better about the area they live in. And then at the end of that, we go through and we survey them again to see what kind of job we did. And I'll tell you what, almost to a person, 100% of the time, we get very, very good reviews from the community members that we survey. It's a very effective program.
I know that the H14 15th Street West area, that area in there was one of them that you surveyed. Would you say that the sentencing of those 3 gang members is attributed to the survey and the community input?
Absolutely. Anytime you take gang leaders or very, very active gang members out of a community, you're taking care of a tremendous amount of crime, and you're taking care of a tremendous amount of fear in any community. And I think that had a great deal to do with the perception on the part of the community that the situation is better.
Would you agree that the community is coming together to help us fight crime?
Absolutely, absolutely. The community has a key role, and as I mentioned, Shelley has done a wonderful job helping them organize, helping them pull together so that they can communicate with us and we can help them with their problems.
I just want to say that I've participated in 3 or 4 of those surveys, watching them take place, and it's really a good effort, and it's just a really good job, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move to,
Chairman Augusta, just real quick, all this information, press release and stuff, was emailed to all the commissioners as well.
okay, thank you. Any other comments? We'll move to Commission Report Number 3, and it's a report on Neighborhood Impact Program. I'll call upon Commissioner Johnson for comments.
Yeah, maybe just to refresh memories, Neighborhood Impact is basically it's an outreach to specific communities geographically. The one that we participate in is over in the Paiute neighborhood, and we have daily activities. We have a drop-in center for young people to come at 3 o'clock every day. We have evening activities for parents. In this month, we actually have 2 softball teams that are participating in a community softball league, and so giving young people and adults a chance to come out and to play, and it's just been really healthy. I was actually umpiring one of their games on Sunday night, and I almost was able to make them win, but not quite. I couldn't. I tried. And we just have had a tremendous response in that community. We are taking kids to camp this month. And August 13th, and I'm sure the city will be getting this information out, but I know the city is going to have a community barbecue at Paiute Middle School. And so there really is a cooperation between the two, Neighborhood Impact and the city, just working together to, just to better people's lives. And we are currently establishing another outreach, Neighborhood Impact outreach in the trend track, and so that's moving forward as well. So it's really been wonderful. We were more involved in tutoring in the school year, but obviously school is out, so now we have painting classes in the afternoon and music classes and just various activities for young people and adults to be engaged in. Probably one of the better things we see happening right now is something in conjunction with another community outreach, and that is the Fatherhood Project. And it's just meeting with dads at the house, and we have 9 dads from the community coming, and it's just been really, really a healthy thing as they sort of discover the important role and grow in the role of being a dad in the home and how vital that is to a community. So those are some of the things that are happening. There's something going on there every weekday and most weekends, and that includes, sort of from 3 o'clock till 9 o'clock at night as various groups come in and out of the community house there.
Okay, any comments? All right, we'll go now. Thank you very much for that report. You guys are just doing a fantastic job. I need to comment about that. We'll move now to Commission Report Number 1, report on medical marijuana discussion, and who is we call upon more? Dr. Brown?
Dr. Brown.
Thank you. Commissioner Christ and I had the opportunity to spend a good amount of time talking about this. We did not have the opportunity to speak with the city attorney, David McEwen, but both Commissioner Christ and I thought it would be very helpful to have input from the other commissioners on your point of view about this, the issue of having a medical marijuana dispensary in the town of Lancaster. So if you wouldn't mind, Commissioner Johnson, could you share your thoughts on this?
Sure, I'll go first. I'd love to. Thank you for the invitation to. I really have done quite a bit of research and quite a bit of reading, and probably, Dr. Brown, more from the perspective of, how would a medical marijuana dispensary affect Part 1 crimes? Because that is the job that we've been given to do as a commission. And as I've talked to various cities and read quite a bit of material that's available, one of the things that I discovered, and I think that we all sort of feel that tension of wanting to be compassionate and in all ways to those who, apparently have a medical need for that, which you would be much more familiar with as a doctor. So sort of the medical side of it, but then also just the role that we know that drugs play in a community, and certainly my involvement in the community, that I see that as being a significant part of some of the challenges that we face. And so one of the things that I discovered was that there are a number of cities that have enacted bans on medical marijuana dispensaries for various reasons. And a number of them started out by just adopting urgency ordinances, because I think, as we heard from the city attorney, that there's some sense of need for direction, and certainly that's what I heard from the sheriff's department. While they weren't taking a stand on it, I think what I heard last meeting was, we just need clarity. What would you like us to do? So there was a number of cities that adopted urgency ordinances for dispensaries, as they sort of then could buy the time almost as a placeholder to be able to have the time, for the city staff and city council to figure out which direction to head. So that might be a consideration. But as I was sort of looking through, there was a number of cities that had adopted bans, and the reasons that they gave for doing that were ones that I think we should consider. And one of them was because of the secondary impacts of medical marijuana dispensaries in their community, which I'm concerned about. Again, that's kind of my main concern, is what impact will this have on crime. So I think that those are worth investigating. I think we've heard already from the city, of Los Angeles, some of the issues that they have faced and some of the frustrations that have gone on there as they've attempted to sort of regulate that. I am aware that by law, there's already, it's permissible for caregivers to have collectives and cooperatives, but I do think that there's a distinction between that and a dispensary. And so I think that we would be within legal ground to do that, and at this time, because of the research that I've done and just looking at other cities and some of the impacts that it's had and some of the distraction that I think it's brought to even law enforcement, my recommendation would be to actually recommend to the city council that they would enact a ban on dispensaries.
Thank you. Commissioner Vieira, we just started talking about this, and Commissioner Christ and I had spoken a lot about this, and we're formulating ideas, and thought it would be very helpful if we could get the input of the other commissioners on their thoughts. So if you have some thoughts, we'd love to hear them.
Thank you, and my apologies for coming in late. I had an unexpected medical procedure with family. But anyway, I am here, have done some research on the medical marijuana, and again, missing some of the conversations that have taken place here earlier. I guess I'd start out by saying what it appears to me is that really the question, or the thought that we have before the Criminal Justice Commission, is do we want to establish, or do we want to consider establishing medical marijuana dispensaries in the city of Lancaster? Because either way, with or without them, my understanding on this issue is that they would still be accessible for those who need to use it for medical marijuana. It would just be based upon the fact of, is the convenience here in the city of Lancaster, or do people have to continue to go elsewhere for that situation? Like Commissioner Johnson here, some of the concerns that I would have would be along the lines of, what does that mean specifically here in the city of Lancaster? I think as a Criminal Justice Commission, we have to go back and take a look at what is our objective, what is our charge as a Criminal Justice Commissioner right here? And is it in alignment with that? I think that's one thing we have to look at specifically. I think also, in doing some research, a concern I'd have would be on the secondary impacts of cities that have implemented these dispensaries within the city, and some of the impacts that have taken place within those cities as well. Again, I would say that it's still accessible, but I'd also say, in looking at the conflict between the federal and the state law there, and looking at the Controlled Substance, or the Substance Abuse Act, maybe that's an area, and I don't know what that procedure would be the amendment may need to be taking place there. I mean, really, if it's going to be a prescribed drug to those qualified patients, to those caregivers, then let's treat it that way and have the amendment take place within that act there to treat it as if it's a prescribable drug as well. So those are my thoughts at this point in time. I don't know if this is something where we're going to bring a recommendation forward to the council, if we're going to act on that. I am ready to do that if need be, but those are my initial thoughts, and I guess I'd like to hear from others and have a dialogue and discussion before I share anything further.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, and if you want to think about this, but if we were to make a recommendation whether to recommend to the City Council to move forward with the licensing of a dispensary in the City of Lancaster, what would your suggestion be?
My personal suggestion at this time would be not to move forward with that. I would recommend that we not have dispensaries in the city of Lancaster.
Commissioner Augusta, what are your thoughts?
I will tell you, personally, I'm very sensitive and have compassion for those folks that have a need for medical marijuana. But on the other hand, I still am struggling with the fact that under the federal law, possession is still a crime. And as Dr. Vieira stated, I feel like if this issue needs to be resolved at a legislative level. In other words, my concern is always about quality control of drugs that are prescribed and a process that involves the Drug Enforcement Administration that develops these protocols and identifies, the rules and regulations that like all prescription drugs. And so I'm very uncomfortable with this process where we circumvent the system, and I think that it really needs to be recognized by the government, DEA, or whoever is actually developing the rules and regulations. Now, the Drug Enforcement Administration has, develops a lot of the rules and the protocols for prescription drugs, but I struggle with circumventing that system. I think that most importantly, there needs to be that process in place. And I feel like that's what we would be doing if we recommended to the City Council that we should have a process that would, allow dispensaries. So my position would be a recommendation to the City Council would be at this time to not adopt that regulation.
Commissioner Greer, your thoughts?
Excuse me. At the last meeting, we heard a lot of impassioned speakers, and I have compassion for those people, especially the ones that talked about the physical ailments and the medical needs that they had. I also listened closely to a couple of the physicians that were up and spoke. I believe they were both oncologists at the last meeting. For anyone who has witnessed or been a part of a friend or family member that is dealing with chemotherapy and radiation and fighting cancer, your heart goes out to them, and you certainly want them to have anything legally within their means to deal with the pain and deal with those problems. I recognize that the state of California, through the voters rather than the legislature, the voters did approve this, and it's been over 10 years, Prop 215. I also know that unless something's changed since the last meeting, there is still some conflict between federal regulation, and I think this falls into, I think it's Section 1 or drugs. And this is something that can't be. A lot of people ask me, well, I'd be okay with it if a doctor would actually issue a prescription. That's not possible. There hasn't been a change in the law for that. I find it really an interesting concept that a doctor can write a recommendation rather than a prescription, and that should resolve the problem. I also recognize the dilemma that Captain Anderson has discussed as far as his officers in patrol. These are issues for deputies that they have to deal with. Is somebody, especially when the 215 prop, if I understand it correctly, says that even a verbal authorization or recommendation is sufficient. That's got to be an interesting dilemma for people in the field. When I say people in the field, law enforcement personnel, and the person who thinks he is legally authorized to use and wants to use marijuana for his medical condition. I heard Captain Anderson say, in the event there was an ordinance or some type of local municipal rules that will be helpful, giving the department locally here in our city some direction. I also heard him say last time that he anticipated that sometime, hopefully soon, county council would come out with some better guidelines and clarification for how LA County Sheriff's Department should deal with this. It's unfortunate that Attorney McEwen's not here today. I did want to ask him about some of the other cities. He had indicated he was going to round up and gather all the other municipalities where ordinances had passed. I know some of the communities where this has happened has been, Oakland, which probably not many cities want to model themselves after in many ways. Wasn't that many years ago they had some of the highest murder rates in the state. I also know that communities in Orange County like Laguna Woods, for anybody who's ever been there, that is about as conservative an area as you're going to find in age and in political views. There are not a lot of people with alligator clips on their ties, I don't think. So it may work in some communities, it may not work in others. My biggest focus, while I try to keep all of those different things in mind, is the primary charge of the commission is to reduce Part 1 crimes, working with the city and stakeholders in the community and organizations. For me to support dispensaries in the community, I would have to have some kind of compelling evidence that it does not adversely, and really I'd want to see that it in some way reduce Part 1 crimes. That's supposed to be the primary mission of this commission, as I understand it anyway, and that's what I'm trying to work towards each and every week and month when we have these meetings. Therefore, since I have not seen by way of anything that the committee has found, now I know that the committee representing the commission comprised of Dr. Brown and Vice Chairman Chris have met and done research on this, so I'm very interested to hear what other information they can share with me today. At this point, barring some additional information that's going to compel me to think otherwise, I am disinclined to want to see dispensaries. And I was going to ask Attorney McEwen, he's not here today, to explain to me if without an ordinance, collectives and cooperatives are still allowed to operate within the city, and yet without an ordinance we can prevent dispensaries from being here. Jason,
if you might, you can continue and you all can continue, but if there are any questions, I have been in meetings with Mr. McEwen. We have talked in depth about this issue, so if there's any questions I can address, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Then that would be the first question I would ask is, could collectives and cooperatives operate within the city and yet the city be able to prevent storefront dispensaries from operating?
Yeah, and that's exactly the question I wrote down when Commissioner Johnson mentioned the not allowing dispensaries. There is a difference between a co-op and a dispensary. The question becomes do you not allow either? And as we discussed last time we were here, there are some legitimate issues as it relates to being in compliance with state law, as well as understanding that there are people using, there are people growing, this is happening legally under state law currently. The question becomes, how do we regulate it locally? And I think that's the recommendations we're looking for, is the regulation locally. If we're going to completely ban this, we have to identify, what ramifications are associated with that, and then how the Sheriff's Department is going to enforce that, or if they are willing to enforce something that goes against state law. If we are going to allow it, and that's a lot of the discussion that Dave and I and community stakeholders have been having, is how do we allow it? Is it a storefront? I think what we would think of as a dispensary is somewhere where you walk into a storefront and buy it. Do we allow the homegrown? Do we allow co-ops of 5, 10 users to grow their own? Is that allowed? Okay, if that's allowed, can they grow it in their home? Are they allowed? How do they transport it? Can they come to the home and get it? Is there a home occupation permit? So all of these questions become very difficult to answer. And I know it's hard to make a recommendation, yay or nay. And I guess let me clarify. That's easy to make a recommendation that way. And at risk of sounding like a bureaucrat, there are implementation measures and directions we need as relates to implementing it as well. It's to say, well, we're not going to allow it at all. Then we need to probably pass an ordinance that says that. In that case, we'd have to identify its legalities relates to state law, and then we'd have to identify a way either code enforcement or the Sheriff's Department enforce it. So it's a very difficult decision, and maybe that's why the council allowed you guys to have this discussion. But it's much more complicated than yes or no. I know that's a difficult answer to you, but I mean, the answer is yes, we have to deal with it somehow. There are people using, there are people growing currently, and the Sheriff's Department and the city needs direction on how to handle that or regulate that.
I wouldn't mind commenting, since you had referenced my comments at the beginning. From my reading and just talking even to some leaders in other communities and police departments, I don't think that you can enact a ban on collectives and cooperatives legally. I think that's already legally taking place. I don't think that you can do anything about that, even if you wanted to. But what communities have chosen to do is enact bans on dispensaries, and there is a distinction between those two. In terms of cooperatives and collectives, SB 420 has already given some fairly clear guidelines in terms of enforcement and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do and how much they're allowed to possess and grow and who's allowed to do that in terms of caregivers. And so I think that that's fairly defined. I think that our consideration primarily ends up being, do we want to have dispensaries here in the city of Lancaster? And other cities have been able to enact bans because it is not in contradiction with the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, which still allows collectives and cooperatives. And really, it doesn't matter what any of our feelings are about that. That's the law. And so that's what they're able to do. And the real issue, I think, before the commission is just really what do we do with this idea of dispensaries. And so that's, in talking to other cities, other police departments, that's been what the issue is, and I think that's that's what I think we need to give Axel is a clear direction. In terms of that's what the city needs to do is let our sheriff's department know what are you going to do with dispensaries. I do think that the last meeting it seemed very clear to me that there was some sense of urgency that we needed to take some action on dispensaries because the idea being they're going to pop up and what are we going to do about that? And that's why after talking with those other departments, my conclusion was it would be best to have an ordinance where you ban dispensaries, not relating to collectives and cooperatives.
Okay.
That was my understanding as well, why I made the comment that what was before us was specifically dispensaries. I guess my question would be is that at this point in time, what is the status with regards to what's occurring in the city of Lancaster with the cultivation, possession, and so on for those that are exempt, if you will?
Currently, we have no local ordinance or authority as relates to the use or growing of medical marijuana as a co-op or a cooperative, and for that matter, as a dispensary.
So it's in accordance with current state law, then.
Correct. It would be as Commissioner Johnson mentioned, we would be conforming to state law, which may or may not be something we want to continue. I mean, there may be issues associated with just complying with state law that we want to regulate. Regulate where you can grow them. Can you grow them in a residential neighborhood? I mean, it allows to grow, and there's other things that we can restrict locally that may have an effect on the co-op as well.
I think in terms of restrictions on co-ops and collectives, and I think that's where city staff, though, has to come up with some recommendations and bring those, to a commissioner, to the council, ultimately.
Absolutely, and just to back up and clarify what we have been doing, it is a very complicated situation. I just went down the how, when, where, and why. The question becomes where do you grow it? Who can buy it? How do they buy it? How much can they buy? Is there certain neighborhoods that are restricted and certain neighborhoods that are okay? It becomes a very detailed process, and you're absolutely right. I think that's something that, as a recommendation, there is a bigger policy picture. Should we not? But then there is, this is our directions. We want to encourage co-ops. I shouldn't say encourage is probably not the appropriate word. We want to allow co-ops to exist under current state law. We want to restrict dispensaries, and then we can go back and craft an ordinance that fits those policy directions with implementation strategies that work with the Sheriff's Department as well as city staff. And that, frankly, you don't want to create a law that is going to be broken. You want to create a law that can be followed, that benefits all, not only the community stakeholders, the users, and the medical needs of the community, but also the community needs, the neighboring properties, et cetera.
Well, I think in addition to that, we'll have to take into consideration also the drainage of the resources that are at hand to potentially enforce whatever it is that may or may not come forward.
You know, when you talk about co-ops, you talk about how do they get permitted? If we're going to allow them, is there a process for permitting them? What is that process? Who gets a permit? Is there an unlimited number of permits? What is the permit fee? You know, we start getting into that mechanism that I think it's generally accepted that there needs to be local direction. The question is, to what extent?
I still would like to, I don't want to beg this issue, but I still would like to go back to, I think the folks that came last time and shared, what I heard primarily from them is the desire was a dispensary. I don't think it was about collectives and cooperatives. I mean, I agree with you, there's probably a lot that needs to be done there, but I think essentially what I felt like was before us was let's evaluate this issue of a dispensary. Should we open one? Should we? And that's where I'm not sure that there doesn't need to be some kind of, if nothing else, immediate action on the part of the city council to at least enact some kind of a urgent, sort of ordinance to prohibit those, even if it's for a 45-day period, and then you can extend it from there. There's some regulations on that as well as to how long that can be.
Commissioner Christ and I have talked at length about this, but if I'd ask him to share his views with everyone. Thank you.
I looked for some way to make this work for everybody because the testimony that was given last time we met, I could understand the need for medical marijuana for cancer patients that need it. So I looked for some way to make it work within the community. I met with several people that wanted to open dispensaries. I asked them would they be in favor of the restrictions. The part that I have a difficulty with is the access and the abuse and the impact that it has on the community. If we could trust everybody that they wouldn't share it, I would be okay with it. If we could do things differently and have restrictions where the youth could be protected from it, I would be more apt to do it. But every time that I looked at it, trying to make it work, it all boiled down to how is the impact on our city going to be right now? Right now, the city, I would say, is no longer in a crisis mode, but we're still looking for ways to lower our Part 1 crime. And that's what we're charged with as a commission. If we allow this, from all the research that I've done, different detectives outside the area in different communities that do have it, they've all said it has a great impact on the community and on their resources by opening a dispensary. I talked to different people about licensing fees, fingerprints, photographs, even color coding the medical marijuana so we could see the difference between, so the sheriff department could determine the difference between what came from a dispensary and what came from, so a lot of work was put into it. I talked extensively with Dr. Brown, but it all comes up to the point where I don't think it would be a good idea at this time for the city to open a dispensary. And I say at this time because we not only need to give our sheriff's department a clear direction in which to go, we need some clear direction from the people up in Sacramento. We need a direction of exactly what we're doing in a more clarified area. So at this time, I think it's all been covered. I won't belittle the thing. That's my opinion on it.
Thank you very much. Captain Anderson, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you would give me your take on this, in particular, how the opening of a dispensary might affect crime in the city.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say to the commission is that, the sheriff's department and all of law enforcement does not make law. What we do is we enforce laws. So, I really hesitate to even give an opinion on the subject. What I really feel strongly about, and I think Commissioner Johnson used the best term that I've heard this morning, is clarity. We need some direction. There's a lot of confusion right now. There are differences between the way the federal law enforcement looks at this. There's a difference between the states. Then you have your local concerns, such as cities and counties. What I really feel strongly about is that we need to hone things down so that we have clear direction about where to proceed. There's no question about it. If you talk to our narcotics personnel with the Sheriff's Department, they feel that there's a lot of scamming going on with these dispensaries. The city of Los Angeles is having a terrible time with it right now. Santa Monica is having a terrible time with it right now. The existing system doesn't give law enforcement enough clarity to identify who is illegally possessing this marijuana and who is legally possessing and using the marijuana. Recreational use of marijuana is against the law under the Health and Safety Code. Medicinal use of marijuana, of course, is legal. So, I think the real problem for law enforcement right now is let's get some clarity so that we know how to proceed in enforcing existing laws.
Thank you very much. Very interesting listening to everyone's point of view. It's perfectly clear to me that people have thought very conscientiously and at length about this and with their heart. I think Mr. McEwen gave us a very good summary of Proposition 215, which was the state proposition, and then the codification of that under Senate Bill 420, which establishes the rules. But I think there's some things that we're hearing that, and that Commissioner Christ and I talked about this, and one of them is the mission of the Crime Commission. In other words, what are we dealing with here? And on the one hand, coming from the point of view of being a physician, there certainly is a role for medical marijuana, and I think the doctors that came in and testified to that and the people that I've talked to feel clear that there are certainly situations where that can be a benefit. That's not really our mission. Our mission is to decide whether or not the opening of a dispensary in the city of Lancaster is going to improve the crime situation or harm or create more crime problems and use more police resources. I certainly have not felt that we've been presented any evidence to the effect that if we were to enact or to recommend, I should say, a medical marijuana dispensary, it would reduce crime in the city of Lancaster, or that it would help the police department in fighting crime. So from the point of view of our mission, I'm not sure that this is a medical necessity problem, but a crime problem, and it seems clear that everyone on this commission would be in agreement with that. Number two, and this has been pointed out by a number of people, when you see a situation where the law is in conflict and there's a dodgy law on the subject, it means that it's a politically hot problem and nobody wants to take a stand. The federal law is very clear that marijuana is a Schedule I drug and against the law to use in any circumstance. The Supreme Court is very clear that federal law preempts state law. That is, the federal law clears the field of all state laws. So if the issue of the legality of Proposition 215 made it to the United States Supreme Court, they would clearly hold that it's invalid in light of the federal statute. So what you really have is a situation where the federal government has chosen, for the time being, to look the other way. They certainly have the power to shut this down, but they have chosen, for whatever reason, to look the other way, but not to pass legislation enabling states to pass this legislation. the state, in their formulation of 420, also leaves, it's a very, they have clearly left the field open because they have not wanted, it appears to me, to commit themselves to a position because it's politically dangerous for them. So I think everyone feels that this is an area that is unclear. And I'm not sure that we're going to solve this on the Crime Commission to clarify what the law is and what it should be with respect to medical marijuana dispensaries. There's been a considerable amount of concern on the part of the commissioners. I think particularly Commissioner Vieira, Johnson, and Christ, who spent a lot of time with youth programs, what the impact of a vote sanctioning a medical dispensary would be on the state of mind of young people in terms of whether smoking marijuana is a good idea or a bad idea. I recognize that that's not what the issue specifically deals with, but nonetheless, when people make decisions like that, they create an impression that can be taken the wrong way, particularly by people that might be young and impressionable and less inclined to exercise good judgment or control or restrain their behavior. So I think there's a concern on a lot of people's parts that such an endorsement looks like a broader endorsement, or could look like a broader endorsement, of smoking marijuana. The issue had come up last time we talked about this in here about whether if the city acts, they can act in a way that would preempt the field, at least in the city. In other words, since the law is relatively unclear, we may have cooperatives, we may have individuals operating in certain ways that are within the law, but still in a fashion that's not completely clear. And if the city were to act in a way to set up a dispensary, they could control the location and the other elements of that dispensary that might preempt the introduction of other dispensaries outside the city limits, in Palmdale and other areas, that would be far less favorable to the way that the city might want to see a dispensary. Not clear to me whether the preemption function of the city taking action would help that or not. If the city's guidelines were too strict, it'd be perfectly easy for someone else to still set up a dispensary outside the city limits and fulfill the needs of people that felt that the guidelines that the city set up were too strict. My hunch is, after listening to what's been said here today and listening to the people that came in and talked last time, that we should make a recommendation, but we should address it very specifically to what the recommendation is, and that would be that the Criminal Justice Commission doesn't feel that the establishment of a dispensary in the city limits of Lancaster would contribute to the reduction of crime. I recognize that to a certain extent this is kicking the can down the road, but I think that it belongs down the road. It does not belong with this crime commission. So there was two things I'm going to suggest, and one is that we do vote today on a recommendation, that the recommendation be specific. That is, if you don't mind, I will go ahead and make a motion that the Criminal Justice Commission at this time does not recommend that a medical marijuana dispensary be opened in the city of Lancaster due to the fact that there is little evidence that this will reduce Part 1 crime in the city of Lancaster. Any thoughts?
Is that a motion pending now?
Yes.
Did you get the motion very, very clearly?
Terry?
Did you get all of that?
It's on record.
Okay.
Just a note, too, that we do have speaker cards, so there is opportunity for public comment on every item on the agenda.
I have Jason, sorry to interrupt, but I have a second motion that I'm going to introduce, which has to do with that if the city council feels that a medical marijuana dispensary would be a good idea for the health of the community, not for fighting crime, that there are recommendations that we might be able to make with respect to how to structure that dispensary in such a way that might reduce the potential abuse.
Okay, I think probably before we vote on any motions, we do need to hear the public comments from the floor. So before we do that, I will call upon Terry to read the admonition, please.
Non-agendized. We request that any person who would like to address the Criminal Justice Commission on agendized items to complete a speaker card. You will find speaker cards at the back table of this council chambers. Additionally, we respectfully request that you fill the cards out completely and print as clearly as possible so that if necessary, the commission or city staff will be able to contact you either by phone or mail. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. When you approach the podium, please notice that there are 3 lights. The green light comes on when you begin, the yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light will come on when your 3 minutes are up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. Following this procedure will allow for a smooth and timely process for the commission meeting, and we appreciate your cooperation. Thank you.
Okay, at this time I'll call upon Mr. David Paul.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. I heard the word courage before, and that's what it is. It's just the need for politicians to stand up and be courageous enough to confront the reality of what we face. Now, I would like to say to you that, do you remember the scene in The Untouchables where Kevin Costner as Elliot Ness said that he'll have a drink when it's legal? I have great respect for that. I talk about there's no greater joy than to love and respect the law all the time. But we need the law to be worthy of that respect. And there's a lot of misinformation. So I understand that all of you, because of this prohibition and this illegality of marijuana, may not have a lot of experience with it. I'm willing to talk to any of you privately about what qualifications I have. But I will tell you, I am eminently qualified to tell you the reality of life in the streets of drugs. I have been in charge of security in places where drugs are used. I have a bunch of other experiences, and I would prefer to share them privately. But I will tell you this, marijuana is the least dangerous drug of all the drugs. If you had the choice to have a world where there was only marijuana consumed or there was only alcohol, what would you do? Now, you want to protect the children. I appreciate that. I have seen children in elementary school come to work stoned, inhaling paint out of a can. Permanent brain damage. So if I put the choice to you, would you have rather them smoke a joint or inhale that paint? What would you say? It's a real simple choice. See, there's a lot of misinformation that goes along with this. And I appreciate where you're coming from, I really do. But marijuana is not the demon that it's made out to be. Commissioner Johnson, you were talking before about the fathers and the children. You know, these are the participating in the community. These are the great joys that people need to feel connected. And that's what we want to get across to people. But having this prohibition on marijuana and this demonization is just, it's wrong. It's not the worst thing. And if it were the only thing, I mean, I heard testimony here about all these people that want to get off of meth and all these things. There's the other thing with the motorcycle gangs. These Mongols, they work with the Mexican mafia. They take tax off this stuff on the street. So if you want to defund these guys, take away their income source. You know, it's just sense. It's just common sense. It's not a demon. I would love to talk to you more. These people need help. And they're getting it from places that are going to support these gangs and these cartels. Let's have the courage. Talk to me individually, privately, or together, and let's work this out. Thank you.
Next speaker I'll call upon is, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Tarlise Netherly.
Good morning. My name is Tarlise, and I am currently with American Healing Group in Inglewood, California. We are 2 blocks from the Inglewood Police Station, and to clarify one thing between a dispensary and a co-op is something where we are members. We contribute, we grow for each other, and it stays in one specific place. And a co-op is more of a, where you can just, like a storefront. And we are more private, more like in a doctor's office type setting. We've been established for over 5 years. You were talking about color coding it to where it would be different from what's on the street. We have those containers. A lot of the issues that you have addressed, we already addressed in Inglewood. The different zonings, how our members are established. They each have their own medical card. Along with the recommendation, when they come in, they get a picture card with their name and when their recommendation expires. The different laws are established on our website as well. Everything that the state has, as well as the federal government has. I believe you guys received that already from our company. So in having one here, I would rather you have a co-op instead of a dispensary. A co-op you can manage more, and it would be more it would work better with the sheriff's department opposed to a storefront dispensary. I would be happy to talk with any of you guys. We did email you the information. We've been established for over 5 years, and we've had a good standing with Inglewood Police Department, and if you check with their stats, as far as we are concerned, it has not gone up, it has gone down. It's more controllable with us because they know who our patients are, and they are welcome in and out of our co-op, opposed to a dispensary who was more closed in and more privately owned. If you have any questions, I can wait outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Raquel Scarborough.
Good morning. Excuse me. My only question. My name is Raquel Scarborough, and my only question was, maybe it's been answered. Will there be zoning, or what is the zoning for legal marijuana in the city of Lancaster? And that's all. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next call upon Stacy. Is it Hummel?
Thank you for your time and good morning. I was here last time, and I want to thank everybody for their considerable time and effort and energy that you have spent on this. Just quickly, a couple of things that you guys brought up. I heard Commissioner Brown speak about the possibilities of preempting maybe the eventuality of what's going to happen in Lancaster in regards to medical marijuana, and I want to say that kind of speaks a little bit to what we talked about earlier with the Mongols gang and not being afraid of preempting situations, because in the end, oftentimes, things work out better if you make sure they are well regulated and planned out from the city standpoint, from the law enforcement standpoint. I think that in terms of a ban and in terms of the bans that other cities have enacted, it has been out of fear of what has happened in other cities. I think when you look at cities like Los Angeles, where there was never a really clear ordinance for people to follow, absolutely, you're going to have crime that's going to go crazy. You're going to have people that don't have the best of intentions opening up these shops to make a quick buck. I think what we have the ability to do at this point when it comes to dispensing collectives in the city of Lancaster is to come up with guidelines that the law enforcement would like to see enacted. And people such as myself and my business partners, as owners of a dispensing collective in North Hollywood currently, we are encouraging and excited about the possibility of working with law enforcement, because that doesn't only make the community safer, it makes me safer when I'm working there. It makes my family safer when I drive away from there. So I ask that everybody take the fear of what's happened in cities like Los Angeles and cities like maybe in Oakland in the early days out of it, and we think about it from the standpoint of what we can do, the opportunities that we have right now, the really unique opportunity that we have to work in conjunction with law enforcement to make this a really beneficial thing for the citizens in the community that is very, very necessary for. Another thing quickly, President Obama 3 months ago actually stated that he would like states to govern themselves when it comes to medical marijuana. So I think that we have to take that as well as the Attorney General's comments based on the same statements from President Obama that they will no longer be federally rating dispensaries. They're allowing states to govern themselves at this point, and there are statements out there to that effect, and you guys are welcome. I'm sure you've all taken a look at that. So thank you very much for your time. And my husband and I do own, like I said, a shop in North Hollywood, and we have actual facts and figures and letters from the North Hollywood Police Department I'd love to share with you.
Next, call upon Susan Crawford.
Good morning. My name is Susan Crawford. I apologize for bringing both my sons today. One is an adult and one is still a little boy, but I didn't expect to speak today, so I came ill-prepared. I thought after the last meeting, when you had 99 9/10% of the community's support for medical marijuana and a dispensary and or collective, that I think everybody thought the decision was going to be clear. Obviously, we were all wrong, or this place would be standing room only again. There's your political issue. You have much more than 50% of the community backing the availability of medical marijuana. As far as the law is concerned, there is a very fuzzy line between dispensary and collective, and Stacy cleared it up very nicely when she said a dispensing collective. There seems to be misconception that a dispensary means everybody can come in and buy. No, they're extremely careful. They have their own security. You cannot get through the door without a recommendation, current and from a medical doctor. You can't. It's the law, and they stick by it. There's part of your legal issue. The other issue is there isn't a pharmacy in town, Walgreens or anyplace else, where I've seen security on board right there, and their drugs are far more dangerous, far more. The issue of medical marijuana's availability is critical. I know you've already heard all the stories, but apparently none of you are directly connected with someone who has survived or is more comfortable or is living their lives fully because of this. And I'm going to play the family card. I adopted my grandson because my son was clinically depressed and could not get the medical help that he needed. He was given things like Ambien. He still has a scar carved into his arm from Ambien that he put in there under the influence. I urged him to go to a medical marijuana support place. I have my son back, and my grandchild has his father back, solely because of the use of medical marijuana. I have the use of my hands and arms and shoulders back, solely because that's the only thing I take. Now, I realize you say I'm very compassionate. If you had compassion, you would stop being afraid. The dispensaries are safe. The collectives have no other way of getting the drugs safely to their people. And by the way, I don't care what you call it, medical marijuana is an herb. It cannot possibly be classified as a drug because it is not legally a drug. Do you know why it's so difficult? Read The Emperor's New Clothes. It will help you tremendously. Thank you.
Next, call upon David Haber.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners, Captain, and staff, and citizens. I've done a lot of research. Actually, I was just going to be a spectator today, believe that or not. But Commissioner Brown motivated me to the podium here. making many valid points. I really appreciated his kicking the can comment, because I really am a little befuddled that this is before you guys. I understand you guys have done a great job. First and foremost, I'd like to commend all of you for dedicating your time, taking your time, and making our community a better place to live in with respect to crime. And I think that that's what you're charged as the commission that you represent and sit on. And I appreciate that. And you and the captain and his troops have done a great job. I commend his troops out there daily when I see them, because I see the impact. The community is a safer place than it was when I would come to these meetings 15 years ago, 8 years ago, 4 years ago, a couple weeks ago. You've got a tough situation here. And federal law says one thing, as Commissioner Brown pointed out, and state law says something on the other hand. With the dispensary issue, all these people with the medical marijuana cards, from what the research that I've done, they could be growing their own in their backyard, and they're perfectly safe from any prosecution or repercussions. So it would seem to me that most of these people could be doing that in their backyard to take care of the problem, which would take the problem out of your hands, which I'm sure will happen today, and out of the council's hands. And therefore, that would alleviate a lot of this. I have all the compassion in the world for the folks out here that need, relief from their pain, their symptoms, and so forth and so on. I would be the first to agree with that. And I don't want to see crime increase in my community with the unscrupulous people that will, as this commission has done a very commendable job. And all of you need to I take my hat off to you, because you've all done your research. I've listened to every one of you speak. You've all taken this very seriously, and it makes me proud to be a citizen of Lancaster again, to see that there's a commission, that there are people dedicating their time for the betterment of this community. I just want to say thank you for the time. Keep up the good work, and for what it's worth, it's a federal-state thing. It's not going to change. It's the #1 cash crop in the state of California. It'll probably be legal here shortly with the financial crisis we're in, and this may all be moot. But for the time being, the hand that's dealt to us, you guys have did a great job. I want to thank you.
The next speaker, I apologize. I can't really read the name. I don't know if it's Nicole. For group affiliation is We the People. So. Did you submit 2 cards?
There was subjects, and we could submit on subjects, right?
Yeah. So you submitted one on CR1. That's one we're on now.
Okay. Oh, why I said We the People is because a long time ago there was on the website, on like the president's website, it said to become a liaison, because I think that because he wants to be like a president of the people or something. You know how he's doing that. He sort of. So that's why I said We the People. I just wanted to know. Is there any immunity? Well, first of all, the reason why I'm here today is Sergeant Husbands probably just knows why that I'm here today, and I'm here as a citizen, and because I have a problem and I need help, and so I come to you guys as a Justice Commission, and I don't know what Part 1 crimes are, and does that mean for the citizens to when citizens commit crimes, or is it a Part 1 crimes? I mean, what is Part 1 crime?
Pardon me? Don't. Yeah, ma'am, I think we're really precluded from taking any action at all. We're here to listen to your comments, but we're precluded from taking any action. So we're just here to listen.
Action? No, sir. It's that you can't comment on anything that is not on the agenda.
Right, which would be what you're doing right now.
No, it's to you commenting. I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. What is a Part 1 crime?
Yeah, well, you know what, ma'am, I suggest at your earliest opportunity, you can talk to Captain Anderson. He'd be glad to lay all of that out for you.
We have a right to ask questions. I mean, how come you guys are a commission? You guys can't tell us what a part, do you guys know what a Part 1 crime is? Can somebody tell me? They don't know. So could you guys tell me? I mean, this is our only form of interaction. So could you please tell us? Could you? I mean, I have some questions here. Who has immunity to commit crimes or to justice or prosecution? I mean, who has immunity? Do the sheriffs have immunity? I mean, do I have immunity? Who has immunity? Can you ask a question?
I'm not even going to comment.
Are you not going to address this?
No,
because
I'm not going to comment on that.
Why not, Mr. Fiera? I mean, can you tell me? Because I mean, we would like to know. If I'm here as a representative, then we would like to know. I mean,
what you can do is that you can meet with staff.
Yes.
That being whether it be the captain or any of the city staff, and they can share those things with you. We are precluded from doing that.
Doing what? Answering questions or interacting with the people? Because if you guys are precluded for interacting, then maybe you should have a closed session meeting and take it to the sheriff and not be at our house. This is the citizens' house. This is our embassy.
And the format for you to have those answers questions would be through staff.
Okay, ma'am, your time is up. Thank you.
Okay, fine. You too. Or you're welcome.
We had a, well, is that an agendized or non-agendized item?
It's not on this item.
I'm sorry?
It's not on this item. You can proceed.
Just as a matter of point of clarification, Commissioner Brown has a motion pending. However, Commission Report Number 1 is just a report on the medical marijuana discussion. I believe at this time it would be, based upon information that we have from Attorney McEwen, it would be inappropriate for us to make this, to rule on this as, and vote on this as an agenda, as a motion. Is that correct?
Right. And to clarify, it's not agendized as an action item. It's agendized as a report. So please excuse the difficulty in understanding that it is a Brown Act issue. Now, as it relates to the next phase or the next discussion that we'll have, obviously, is with the City Council. We can take a consensus, some type of consensus to the council that we, from a criminal justice perspective, by acknowledgement of the commission, that don't see this as a opportunity to reduce crime, which is the goal and function of the commission, and that it's a better addressed through the City Council, and then we can proceed through the City Council process, if that's the wish of the commission.
That sounds fine. I had actually rephrased it a little bit, but I like your articulation of it. So are we at a point where we want to make a motion and have a vote?
It would not require a motion. It would not require a vote, but a general consensus and understanding from city staff that we can take this discussion we had today, understand your intent individually, and relay those to the council as it relates to future council action.
That sounds fine. What I had.
What's our other options?
Thank you. Yeah, you can re-agendize this for the next council or the next commission meeting and take a formal action, and we'll agendize it as such so that it will be new business 1, and it'll be a commission member report and recommendation to the city council on action with regard to the medical use of marijuana.
Is that what you'd recommend?
It's up to you. I mean, it's time. It's another month it's another month past us. But from a commission standpoint, I'm probably sure that the council would like a formal recommendation from the commission. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I know time, of course, is of the essence to a certain extent. The longer we wait, the longer it takes for us to get clarity. But I don't think that the council would have concern either way. It would be a decision that you guys can make.
Personally, I don't know, by making an agendized item, I don't know what more information we're going to be able to provide for them other than the consensus that we've already reached. So is there some value in waiting another 30 days to get this consensus to the council?
Not from my point of view.
I don't know, Jason, what the advantage would be to wait for another 30 days so that we can have a formalized vote on a motion when the consensus has already been reached and the information, we'll save 30 days by getting the information, the consensus. We've captured that information, the consensus of the commission. But I would sure like to hear from the rest of the commission members on that.
I would agree. I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to change between now and 30 days. Now, if the council wants a formal recommendation, they can send it right back to us.
That's correct.
And we could re-agendize that and take action on it at the next meeting as well.
We can take the discussion and consensus from today's meeting, and if between now and next month that the council does want a formal recommendation, we can definitely agendize that. That's a good way to proceed.
I think 3 of the people here said we need the courage to stand up and take a vote and to do what is necessary to do. I, for one, am willing to do that. We also had another individual that said this place would be packed if. So I am for letting the people speak. I don't have a problem with that. And I don't want to pass that on to the city council. I like Dr. Brown's motions. I think we should put them on the agenda and let's go through the process and give them a formal recommendation from the criminal justice.
I would also add, if you're going to do that, I think we make it as productive as possible, and that we actually add. There's a discussion about adding components, in your opinion, which would make the co-op a greater safety or a greater opportunity for creating public safety, and that we use those this next month's time to identify what those could be as a better direction to staff and to council, for that matter.
I think it's up to Dr. Brown. It's his motion, and if he chooses to pull it, then it's up to him.
Let me clarify too. There's a motion, but at this point we're not able to take a motion.
Let me withdraw that motion. I didn't particularly like the way it was formulated anyway, but the drift of it would be the same. I've written a sentence here which I think probably contains the state of mind of the commission, and if I can read that, and then we can decide whether that in fact is our position.
I think it would give us an opportunity to communicate to the council the consensus here today, and then we can do both. We can say here was the consensus of the commission today, and we would like to put it on the agenda, as Mr. Christ has suggested, for the next meeting and go through the formal process, that we will be forthcoming with a formal recommendation. Is that, because I'm hearing that you would like it to go to that formal vote, and I would agree with you, and yet I don't think it's a bad idea for us to let Dr. Brown, at least, I know we're not going to take a vote today to help us to understand what the consensus was here today. Might not be bad.
What I wrote down was that it's the finding of the Criminal Justice Commission that sanctioning a medical marijuana dispensary would not promote the reduction of Part 1 crime in the city of Lancaster. It's as simple as that.
It seems like we have to leave it at that today and put on the agenda for the next commission meeting to take a vote on this issue.
Now, I do have some items, and maybe what I should do is send them out for the next meeting, but some items, because I do think that the issue of a medical marijuana dispensary in the city of Lancaster is properly in the domain of the city council and not the domain of the Criminal Justice Commission. and that if the city council felt that the health concerns of the community outweighed the benefits, outweighed the risks that a medical marijuana dispensary might present to the community, they could certainly make a decision to allow a dispensary in the city of Lancaster, and they would certainly be within their power to do that. There may be things that we could recommend, and these are things that Commissioner Christ and I talked about at some length and have done a lot of thinking about, recommendations that we might make that if the city council proceeded to sanction a medical marijuana dispensary for the health concerns of the community, that there might be some regulations that dispensary could enact that would limit the downside in terms of risks that the Commission's been concerned about in terms of criminal behavior. So why don't I prepare some recommendations and send them out, and we can have an opportunity to read them and then maybe discuss them at the next meeting and vote on them.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Wait a minute, I have a comment. On a couple people that spoke, Mr. Paul, you said that it's, you know, if I would have paint or marijuana for a kid, if I had a choice, my thoughts are to eliminate both for the youth, not to have a choice, not to have, you know, it's, I watched the city council meeting last night, and a lady was very passionate about selling alcohol there. And how can we tell our youth not to partake in alcohol and to do that kind of stuff if we keep forcing it on them and do that? And it's a compassion issue in that. And my ideas or my beliefs are that we, neither one of them is acceptable to me, not an either-or situation. Just a clarification on that for you. The lady asked a question as far as will there be zoning, and I can say yes, there will be zoning if that answers your question. A couple people said that the courage, we have to stand up and take the courage and not kick the can down the street. It takes a lot of courage to say, no, not at this time, and to realize that we understand that there's a compassionate side of it to it, there's a medical side to it, and then there's we're looking to protect the youth. There's two different sides. So I don't think either one of them is wrong. I don't think that a lot of people up here do have the courage to say one way or another, and we're not kicking the can down the road. I don't think that's what we're doing. We're taking a stance and saying this is not good for what we're tasked to do. We're tasked to eliminate or to reduce crime on Part 1. And Nicole, to answer your question, the Part 1 crimes are homicide, rape, robbery, assault, burglary, theft, grand theft auto, and arson. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, so we're going to be, you'll be taking to the city council the consensus of the commission with an expectation that this will be voted on formally in the form of an agendized item next time, in which we can actually, as a commission, vote.
That's correct. And if between now and this month goes by, there are more detailed recommendations, as Dr. Brown mentioned, that we would be willing to incorporate those into that formal recommendation to the council and look at that as we prepare the ordinance for the council. Okay.
So next we'll go to public business from the floor on non-agendized items.
Chairman, we have an opportunity for Shelley to discuss National Night Out. If we would defer to her first, I'd appreciate that, and then we can go to the public comments.
That would be great.
I just wanted to give a report on a couple of things the Public Safety Office is doing Tomorrow night, we have a community presentation on bullying and school violence prevention. That will be here at City Hall at 7 p.m. We're supposed to be here in the council chamber, but we may get moved to the EOC, so if that's the case, we'll leave a sign on the door and direct people to the appropriate room. So if you don't have anything tomorrow night, I would love to see you there, and we're hoping we get a good turnout because, as we know, that's a very important issue that our youth does deal with in the schools every day. You have a National Night Out flyer in front of you. If you're not aware of what National Night is, it is America's Night Out Against Crime. August 4th, it's always the first Tuesday in August that it takes place nationwide. And the city will probably be doing some other activities in addition to our August 4th event, but I can update you on that via email once that's determined. But anyway, our event will be August 4th at Jethawks at Clear Channel Stadium at a Jethawks baseball game. We'll have static displays from the sheriff's station, fire, CHP, the public safety office. And the last 2 years, we've invited only our Neighborhood Watch and Business Watch participants, but this year we're opening it up to the entire community. So if you are willing to help promote this event, Commissioner Johnson, I know with your neighborhood activities, it would be great if they could get involved. We're offering a buy one, get one free ticket offer, and the tickets are discounted at $5. So hopefully I'll see you there, and I'll get your RSVPs probably next week from you. I don't know if you have any questions.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to the public business from the floor, non-agendized items.
We request any person who would like to address the Criminal Justice Commission on non-agendized matters to complete a speaker card. You will find speaker cards on the back table of the council chambers. Additionally, we respectfully request that you fill out the cards completely and print as clearly as possible so that if necessary, the commission or city staff will be able to contact you either by phone or mail. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. When you approach the podium, please notice that there are 3 lights. The green light comes on when you begin, the yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light will come on when your 3 minutes are up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. Following this procedure will allow a smooth and timely process for your commission meeting, and we appreciate your cooperation. State law prohibits the Criminal Justice Commission from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter will be referred to staff. Thank you.
And Nicole, I have a card for you.
Can I maybe borrow that card? Okay, but can you tell me, can I borrow that card? Because I had some notes on there, and then I'll give it back. Is that okay?
Notes on this card, ma'am? I don't think so.
It was the other card. You guys didn't call comment for New Business 1. And so that's still New Business 1 comment. Well, okay, but can you tell me what makes up a Part 1 crime? Please, Mr. Chris.
Nicole, we're not, just for clarification for you, we're not allowed to engage you while you're speaking. You have 3 answers. You don't really ask us questions. You can make statements. You can do what you want. But as far as to ask questions, you can talk to us afterwards. We're glad to talk to you afterwards. But at the podium, you're just making a statement or a comment, not questions. It's not a question and answer period.
Yeah,
okay?
It's engaging into
We'll
a conversation, and that, I mean, now I'm at public, public comment, which then in public comment, Terry Lynn, they're not allowed to comment on public non-agendized items.
That's what you're doing right now.
Okay, so they're not, the commissions are not allowed to comment on non-agendized items? Okay, so what about the overlaying the principle of the commission? I mean, since we're talking about, I'm asking about what's Part 1 crime, that's always on the agenda, right? Because that's your guys' mission. I mean, you guys, I mean, you can give some a little bit here. I mean, can you guys...
Nicole, did you have something that you wanted to say? I mean, you're here to see if we can have a discussion in general, or are you here to...
Yeah, but if you guys aren't answering me, then, you know, how am I supposed to, you know, interact or engage?
Yeah, it's not our job to inform you what Part 1 crimes are. That's something that's really accessible for you all week long.
Right, that's
So
right. But
this
if I'm
isn't the
to
forum for
engage, okay, but if I'm to engage in you guys, with you guys, this is my opportunity. Okay, so I'm asking, okay, but I asked you before, who has immunity to a crime? You know, to prosecution.
Well, you're asking us legal questions, and that we're not here to answer legal questions.
Okay, so
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so can you instruct? Okay, so I can't. So okay, we'll just bring number the regulational taking, right? Okay, it's not about that, but okay, so regulational taking that has a council, and what a council does is basically they figure out. I mean, community, county council, the state, the general. Okay, they figure out a way to deny the claim, right? So it's up to us to make a charge to the sheriffs that a crime has been done onto us, and then if you guys have a regulational taken, that's fine. Then you should also have a compensation, a victim's compensation fund. Now, if the hospital doesn't have a victim's compensation fund, I should be allowed to charge it with a crime.
Hey, ma'am, are you watching your time?
Right? Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, your time's up, ma'am.
No. So anyone, can you direct? Because you know what, President Obama, this guy right here, he's saying that he doesn't know what law is, and he needs help. Okay, so can you guys help him and everyone at Berkeley?
Ma'am, stop. Your time.
But there's 27.
You're 29 seconds past your time. You're over. Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the commissioners on any of the issues today?
Well, none of the issues today. I have something else I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
Is that okay to do that now? Small thing. You know,
usually you're required to fill out two. Let me pull up your card. Yeah. The only thing that I'm showing on here is CR1, but if you have a non-agendized item, do you need another card? We need another card, thank you.
He can begin and then fill out the card later. That'll be fine.
that'll be fine. It's good.
Good afternoon again. Wanted to clarify, I want to commend you. Your patience is great, and hopefully the other commissions and possibly the council can watch the way you gentlemen conduct this meeting and everybody in the room, and hopefully that will help move the city in the direction I believe it's headed in, which is a good direction, because you gentlemen are doing a great job. Your transparency really makes me proud to stand in this chamber again and see that there are people on the other side of where I'm standing that do care what the citizens have to say and are going to take that into consideration. And I commend the Vice Chairman for answering the question. Like I said, the patience you guys have demonstrated is really, really good to try to help all the citizens with their concerns and needs and the transparency. I want to clear one thing up on the kicking the can thing. My perception and the analogy of that is I don't feel you guys kick the can back to the council. I really don't see how the medical marijuana thing ever got before you. I can relate to, on a crime position, from a point of view of crime, I agree with Commissioner Chris and a lot of the comments made that we are concerned about the youth in this town. Mr. Vieira, Mr. Johnson, I don't know, Commissioner Johnson. I'm sure that you all have spent time with the youth. I know Mr. Vieira has, and I know Mr. Chris has, Commissioner Chris. And that's great, and I can see where you're coming from. I don't know some of the other commissioners, but like I said, I'm glad to be before this chamber because you guys are doing a good job, the transparency. Hopefully, like I said, I'm going to repeat myself because I hope when other people see this that the other commissions, as well as the council, pays attention to how a commission such as this commission conducts itself professionally, got down to the problems, did your homework, without a doubt. Everybody on there, like I said, take my hat off once again. You did research the issue that was put in your lap that should have never been there. Should have never been before you from the way I think it got put in your lap. I think that from a criminal point of view, you handle it expert. And, you know, I just want to commend our law enforcement over here once again. You keep up the good work. You're making my town a safer place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
I wanted to reflect on our previous meeting and felt like Judge Estes was not given proper time or attention because the previous meeting had gone so long that I think he's really one of the guys that we want to get as much information from as we can, that he'd be most helpful for us, almost of anybody that's testified so far. But I think we were at the end of almost a 4-hour meeting that went through lunchtime unexpectedly, and then we had probably one of our best folks here to testify, and we probably didn't give him or get from him the time that was needed. My suggestion would be is that we ask him to come back. I hope that he would be willing to do that. I think it's at least worth an attempt to do that. I would not recommend that we ask him to come back to the next meeting until this fairly volatile issue is resolved. I would like to see us as a commission resolve this medical marijuana thing, you know, to make a statement, to move past that in terms of what our role is in that, so that we can get back to doing what we were doing for that, I don't know, 8 or 9 months before this has come up. And I wanted to comment as well. I'm not sure that it's inappropriate for the city council to have referred this medical marijuana issue to us, because I think one of the key components of it, certainly we can't answer all of the questions that they would like us to. One of the key components of it is you know, what effect might this have in terms of crime in the Antelope Valley? And that's where I get back to, and I would encourage, you know, if you have opportunity, to get in touch with cities that haven't, you know, indeed allowed dispensaries, and to find out what has been the effect in terms of crime. I do agree with Dr. Brown that that's really ultimately from this commission all we can say is will this help or hurt in terms of Part 1 crimes. But I'm not especially offended, or do I think it's inappropriate for us to at least give them some feedback, which I think is ultimately what our job is to our council, our elected officials. And I think, you know, I'm certainly happy to do some of that legwork and to give them that recommendation as one member of this commission. So,
okay. Any other comments from any of the commissioners? Okay. The next regular meeting of the Criminal Justice Commission will be Wednesday, August the 12th, 2009, and the commission stands adjourned.